was heard in court, and I can confirm today Tommy is not working today and he has had his phone calls restricted yet again.
For the defamation caused, but you shouldn't be incarcerated. And what Tommy Robinson did was break an injunction where he showed a film.
Tommy Robinson's legal team has just dropped a bombshell warning that could change everything about his case. They're claiming his imprisonment isn't about justice at all. It's pure political persecution designed to silence him.
The world is watching. The more you try and crush us, the more you try and mentally break us, the more support we will gather.
What's truly alarming is how they're allegedly manipulating the system to keep him in solitary confinement longer than would be possible for an actual criminal offence. If you've been wondering what's really happening behind closed doors, in this case, you're about to find out the disturbing truth. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The deeper you look into Tommy Robinson's case, the more alarming it becomes. His legal team has uncovered a disturbing reality that completely changes our understanding of his detention. What most don't realise is that Robinson isn't serving time for a criminal offence. He's being held on a civil matter specifically pushed forward by Labour's Attorney General.
It was a defamation case that was made against Tommy. No one typically goes to jail as a result of a civil action.
This distinction isn't just legal semantics. It's fundamentally altered the conditions and duration of his imprisonment. This civil classification has created an absurd situation where Robinson faces harsher punishment than if he'd committed an actual crime. While violent offenders are being released early due to prison overcrowding, Robinson remains behind bars in conditions that would shock most Britons. The civil route has become a convenient loophole for authorities to bypass the standard protections built into our criminal justice system.
To the mainstream media on the way that they reported on the fact of the way he's being treated in prison, of course.
According to his legal representatives, if Robinson had been processed through normal criminal channels, he would have been released approximately 2 months ago. Instead, he remains detained with no clear end in sight. This raises serious questions about whether his continued imprisonment is about justice or political convenience. The civil classification provides authorities with extraordinary powers to keep Robinson in isolation, far beyond what would be permitted in criminal cases. These extended periods of solitary confinement would typically trigger oversight and intervention if applied to someone convicted of an actual crime. Yet Robinson experiences these harsh conditions without the same level of scrutiny or protection. What we're witnessing is potentially a dangerous precedent. Robinson's appeal hearing isn't just about one man's freedom. It represents a test case for whether our legal system can be weaponized against political dissidents. If civil procedures can be exploited to silence one controversial voice, they can be used against others. This case exposes a troubling loophole in our justice system.
No doubt about it, against Tommy Robinson. And then, of course, the judge decided to incarcerate him, which again seems disproportionate.
By classifying Robinson's case as civil rather than criminal, authorities have effectively removed the guardrails that limit detention periods and regulate conditions. Criminal cases come with established guidelines for early release, limitations on isolation, and regular reviews. Civil detentions operate under different rules, allowing for what essentially becomes indefinite detention without the same protections. Robinson's supporters need to understand the significance of this legal manipulation. This isn't merely about supporting one controversial figure, it's about recognising when legal procedures are being twisted for political purposes. If these tactics succeed against Robinson, there's little stopping them from being deployed against other political opponents in the future.
Tommy Robinson, he's lost his High Court bid to bring a legal challenge to the government over prison segregation.
I know what they're going to do, yeah. What I believe they're going to do, and that I know no one can tell me why I was brought to that prison only.
The manipulation of Robinson's legal proceedings goes far beyond mere classification tricks. Shocking new evidence has emerged revealing just how calculated the authorities' actions have been in their attempt to discredit him. Robinson's legal team has uncovered what appears to be a deliberate pattern of deception, designed specifically to undermine his credibility in court. Consider what happened immediately before one of Robinson's previous court appearances.
For the defamation caused, but you shouldn't be incarcerated. And what Tommy Robinson did was break an injunction where he showed a film.
When Robinson was scheduled to appear before a judge to raise legitimate concerns about his near-total isolation, prison authorities suddenly provided him with a single token activity. The timing couldn't have been more suspicious. This lone concession came just days before his court date, after weeks of complete isolation. This wasn't just poor coordination. According to Robinson's legal team, this perfectly timed activity was deliberately orchestrated to create misleading evidence. When Robinson appeared in court to describe his isolation conditions, prison staff were ready with their counter-argument, documentation of this single event, which they presented as proof that Robinson wasn't being mistreated at all.
Was heard in court, and I can confirm today Tommy is not working today and he has had his phone calls restricted yet again.
What makes this particularly troubling is how effectively this single instance was used to dismiss Robinson's broader concerns. Prison authorities leveraged this one-off event to paint an entirely false picture of Robinson's day-to-day reality. The court, presented with official documentation showing normal treatment, had little reason to question the narrative. Yet this moment of normalcy proved to be the exception rather than the rule, with Robinson's isolation continuing immediately after the court appearance concluded. Robinson's legal representatives argue this incident wasn't isolated, but rather part of a consistent pattern. They point to multiple instances where temporary improvements to Robinson's conditions coincidentally aligned with upcoming legal proceedings. Each time these brief moments of improved treatment were documented and later presented as evidence against Robinson's claims of mistreatment.
It's me believing that the worst will come.
That you will die in jail.
The worst will come, and I want my children to know that.
The timing and consistency of these incidents strongly suggest a coordinated strategy. Rather than addressing the legitimate concerns about Robinson's treatment, authorities appear focused on creating paper trails that can be used to discredit him in court. This tactic serves a dual purpose. It undermines Robinson's credibility while simultaneously shielding those responsible for his treatment from accountability.
The whole world's watching the failure and the attempt to mentally break a British journalist for daring to expose their...
This approach reveals the true nature of the Labour Attorney General's strategy in pursuing this as a civil rather than criminal matter. By avoiding criminal proceedings, they've created a situation where Robinson's treatment receives less oversight and scrutiny, while ensuring maximum control over his detention conditions. The civil classification allows authorities to implement harsher measures, while maintaining a veneer of procedural correctness. So here we stand at a critical juncture in British legal history. What happens with Tommy Robinson isn't merely about one man anymore. It's become a litmus test for our entire justice system. His legal team has warned that this appeal could establish a dangerous precedent for how political dissent is handled throughout the UK. The implications stretch far beyond Robinson himself, raising fundamental questions about whether our courts can remain impartial when powerful political interests are involved.
How long you locked up here for? And I expect them to come in with more charges. I expect them to try and do everything they can because the public right now are listening.
His team replied to this, stating, "Legacy media printing the lies of the establishment as usual. How do they think Tommy plays pool on his own?"
The concern that legal procedures can be weaponised against voices that challenge the political establishment should alarm anyone who values free speech, regardless of their political persuasion. This case will define how Britain responds to political opposition for years to come.